Hi, welcome to PegLuksik.online. I'm your host, PegLuksik. And in this mini-series, we're going to be exploring ways that we as parents can make sure that our children get the best educational experience possible to finish out the school year. For some of us, this is a continuation of what we've been doing all along. But for many parents, teaching at home is a new experience from soup to nuts, and it can be a little overwhelming. So we're going to be talking about some fundamentals of how to organize yourself and then how to make sure your children get the most out of the remaining time in this school year. Today, we're going to be talking about the fundamentals of place and structure and timing. So let's start with place. Our kids are used to running all around the home. You need to set up one place that you designate as the school space. And it's the same place every day so that your children know that when they're in this spot, they're at school. If it's sometimes in the kitchen and sometimes in the living room and sometimes in the bedroom and sometimes in the basement, that makes it very difficult for children to organize their thoughts and to prepare themselves mentally for the focus and concentration that they will need to be successful. The younger the child, the more important that structure is. So you want to take a place in your home and that becomes the school space. So everybody knows when they step into that spot, they're in school. You want that place to be a place that is, as much as possible, distraction-free. You don't want to be in the dining room doing school if other people are in the living room watching television at the same time. That's very distracting for a little one. You don't want to have your telephone ringing constantly, so turn your cell phone off. You don't want there to be video games available. You don't want it to be around crying or other children playing right beside them. So think about what time of day can you make the most distraction free, and what place in your home can you control what's happening so it is also as distraction free as possible. Get dressed to go to school. Don't do school in pajamas. School is important, and when we get dressed for things, in our mind we separate them from the other parts of the day. So don't do school in pajamas. Put clothes on to go to school so that in your child's mind, what you've done is made a dividing line between I'm doing other things, now I'm in school. So especially if this is a new experience for your child, make sure they get dressed and you do the same to teach school. Wherever the place is, organize the things in that place. Think about what was in my child's desk at school, and then make sure all of those things are in the school space. Whatever books you need, stay in the school space. If you're going to read a storybook or they're supposed to read independently a higher level literature book, it's in the school space. Do you need paper, pencils, pens, crayons, scissors, markers, glue? All of those pieces should be in the school space. And once you put them there, they stay there. Even if that means you divide your crayons into two different pieces, with one being the school crayons and one being the playtime crayons that they can use wherever they want. There is nothing more distracting to a child that you're in the middle of a lesson and they can't find the fill in the blank. And now everybody has to get up and go look for fill in the blank. And when you come back, everybody has forgotten why they needed fill in the blank in the first place. So if you have everything organized, then your school day goes or your school time goes as smoothly as possible, and you're not constantly interrupting it and then having to go back and start over. So think about what you need. Even if you have a little caddy there or a drawer or a shelf, that's the school space shelf, and everything you need stays in that spot. That helps your child to focus on the idea that this is school and I need to pay attention, and it helps everybody else to focus on moving the lesson along without distractions or interruptions. Try to plan your school at the same time every day. Children thrive on routine. The more that you bounce them around, the harder it is for them to organize themselves, their thoughts, and then achieve. So whatever time you pick for school, that's the time you pick for school. It doesn't really matter if it's the morning or the afternoon. I wouldn't do evening under most circumstances because by then they're tired, it's hard to concentrate. But it's up to you. Some children do very well in the morning. Some children do better in the afternoon. There may be a lot of other reasons in your house why one time is better than the other. For example, if this is the oldest child and you have a lot of littler ones who have nap time in the afternoon, then it makes sense to put school time during nap time because you don't have the distractions of younger siblings running around and demanding attention. It may be that you're at home right now and there's two parents who are both working from home. And so you're tag teaming who's at work in this hour and who's with the kids at this hour. In that case, you need to think about which parent should be the teacher and which parent is going to be the overflow, the other children parent. Whoever starts as the teacher stays as the teacher. Children need consistency. The person who starts teaching knows how far through this explanation did I get? Which part did they understand? Which part are they still struggling with? How far through this worksheet are we? What was distracting for them? If you're constantly bouncing back and forth from parent to parent, it's very hard for the parent to know what the other one said, and it's very confusing for the child because no two people explain the same thing in the same way. So if whoever starts stays. Now, sometimes in the home, one parent, for example, may be really good at math, and another parent prefers to teach reading or art or something else. That's fine. You can divide it up by subject area, but whoever started teaching math keeps teaching math. Whoever started teaching reading keeps teaching reading. Consistency matters. There's a reason that schools organize themselves, that teachers don't bounce around and they don't have a different teacher every 2 days. That gives your child continuity and it gives you continuity so that you know where you are, what you're focusing on, what they achieved, what they're still struggling with, and it lets your child know that each lesson is going to be the same every day. The timer is your friend. Just get a real simple kitchen timer so that if little Johnny is frustrated and you say, okay, you know what, we're just going to take a break. We're going to walk away from this for 5 minutes. You know, in a home, it's really easy for 5 minutes to be an hour because you walk away and somebody else wants something and you think, well, I'll start dinner and something else distracts you. If it's 5 minutes and you set the timer for 5 minutes, then you know you're coming back in 5 minutes. And so that helps you and that child to stay organized. Now, I wouldn't use the timer for, we're going to do math for exactly 30 minutes. I wouldn't do that. But if you're taking a break, the timer helps you stay within the limits of what you said the break was, because it's very easy to get distracted. How long should you spend per day? You just heard me say, well, if it's in the morning or if it's in the afternoon, but your child's in school all day long. Typically, if you're homeschooling and the child is from grade 1 to grade 3, anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours a day, hour and a half being more toward first grade and 3 being more toward third grade, is more than sufficient. And I've had people over the years say to me, why is that? How is that possible? So I want you to think about a school day in a classroom with school children. I've been a classroom teacher for many, many years, and in a school day, especially with young children, you must line them up to go to the restroom. Well, it takes a few minutes to line them up. Then you have to go down the hall because you can't leave a child behind, so you always have to have them supervised. So you're standing waiting while they each take turns to go to the restroom, and then you bring them back, and then they have to all sit down. And with especially little children, you do that multiple times a day because little bladders need lots of breaks. You've just used up an hour to an hour and a half every day just because you have a crowd who has to go to the restroom. You have to line them up to go to lunch. You have to line them up to go to recess. It's time to go to the library. I line them up, we bring them to the library, and we all sit in the library for 20 minutes, half an hour, while the children, a couple at a time, go and get their books, and the other ones are looking at their books, but basically we're waiting. I'm in a classroom with 20 first graders, and I say, everybody take out your math book. And 18 of the 20 take out their math book, and it takes a couple of minutes, and 2 of them say, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. And you have to go looking through the desk, and maybe they left it at home. Now multiply that times every subject, times every day, times pencils, crayons, scissors, glue. A lot of time in a regular school day basically goes to crowd control. That's not good or bad. It's just real. But when you're at home with your child by yourself, well, you don't need all that crowd control. So all of that time gets pared away from the time that you need to do what you need to do. When you're focusing one-on-one, the lessons don't necessarily take as long. So you can explain what they need and then stop when they get it. You don't have to keep going until everybody gets it, because there's only one somebody sitting there. So it takes a lot less time when you're at home than it does when you're in a group setting. So for first to third grade, you never need more than an hour and a half to 3 hours. Again, 3 hours being more toward third grade, the hour and a half being more toward first grade. And that's kind of flexible depending on your child's needs and attention span. Fourth grade to sixth grade, you're about 3 to 4 hours a day. But as they get older, more of that should become independent, and we'll talk about that in our next episode, how to move your child towards independence. When they're in those first through third grade years, you're pretty much interacting more constantly. As they get older, you're moving more toward giving them the material and the lessons, and then they are actually doing the tasks and just checking in with you periodically. So while the time gets longer, your interactive time gets shorter. And when they get past 7th grade, you should be looking at more above 4 hours a day. And by high school, it's more of a full day. But again, more of that is them doing the work, not you sitting on top of them doing the work. So your time investment there is structured differently, and again is never the whole time, because you shouldn't have to constantly interact. They should be able to read a textbook or a literature book or complete a worksheet more on their own. So your time frame changes as the children get older. Their time frame gets bigger. Your time frame, not so much. So to sum up, what do you need to start with? Pick a place, consistent. Gather materials, keep them in the place. Pick a time that's consistent. Get dressed, so you set school time apart from playtime. Pick a teacher. Talk to each other and decide who's going to teach what, or is one parent going to hold all the load, and then that's consistent. Those are the first steps in actually running a successful homeschool program. And they're not really all that hard as long as you sit down and think them through. We're going to stop right there today. Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you manage this? How do you organize yourself? How do you organize your child? How do you actually make content work? And until then, I'm Peg Luksik, and this is PegLuksik.online.